Imagine discovering that your mind is not fixed, not permanent, not limited by the past, but constantly reshaping itself. Every thought, every emotion, every experience leaving tiny imprints that can weaken, strengthen, or completely transform the pathways within you. Now imagine realizing that the same brain that learned fear can learn safety again. The same mind shaped by stress can learn calm, and the self shaped by old wounds can grow into something new. Tonight, we explore the quiet power within you, the ability to change, to heal, to rebuild from the inside out. As we begin, allow your breath to soften just slightly. Let your body ease into the moment. You may already feel a sense of space opening within you. A gentle widening, a settling, a reminder that you are here and your experience is unfolding in real time. The human brain is not a static organ. It is a living, breathing landscape of changing connections, shifting electrical rhythms, and dynamic chemistry. With every passing moment, it updates itself. It records, it reacts, it learns, it reorganizes. It carries the imprint of what you've lived through, but it is not bound to remain that way forever. This is the essence of neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change its structure, its function, and its patterns, even deep into adulthood. As you settle into the sound of this narration, notice how even now, subtle adjustments occur within your nervous system. A slight release behind the eyes, a loosening in the jaw, the shoulders lowering by a few millimeters. These are tiny moments of neuroplasticity. They are not dramatic, but they are real. The nervous system recalibrates with every shift in attention, every breath, every moment of awareness. Throughout this journey tonight, we will explore the science of healing and the lived experience of renewal. Not as abstract ideas, but as something woven into your biology, something you carry with you, something you can influence. You will hear the story of the living brain, the way experience shapes wiring, the way stress and trauma mold the nervous system, and the remarkable truth that healing is not only possible, but expected. Embedded in your neurons is the capacity to rebuild, to restore, to reimagine who you can become. For now, simply let the mind settle into the rhythm of these words. You do not need to focus intensely. Just listen, gently, as you would listen to a calm conversation at the end of a long day. If you wish, breathe a little slower. Allow the chest to soften. Feel the simple presence of being here. In the quiet of this moment, remember that your brain is listening too. Not just in the intellectual sense, but in the biological sense. Every calming breath, every moment of safety, every feeling of ease sends signals throughout your nervous system. Signals that change blood flow, shift neurotransmitters, regulate hormones, and remind your body that it is safe enough to learn, safe enough to rebuild, safe enough to grow. This is where our journey begins, in the recognition that change is not a distant idea. It is already happening right now in the small adjustments within you. As we move forward, let yourself ease into the unfolding story of your own biology, your own psychology, your own potential for renewal. Let the mind open softly, like a window letting in evening air. Let the body rest into its natural rhythm. And if you feel a slight warmth in the chest or a softening in the breath, simply notice it. We begin with the living brain, the landscape of change, the architecture of hope. Allow one more slow breath. Feel the ground beneath you and gently come with me into the first chapter of this long journey. Healing the mind, neuroplasticity and renewal. The living brain. The brain is often imagined as a fixed structure, a static organ that simply carries the imprint of your past. But the truth is far more extraordinary. The brain is alive, dynamic, electric, chemical, continuously reshaping itself in response to moment-to-moment experience. Even now, as you listen, your brain is updating its internal map of the world. It is adjusting patterns of activity, reorganizing tiny networks, and finding new rhythms of calm and attention. Imagine the brain not as a solid mass, but as a vast landscape. Lights flickering across valleys of neural tissue, branches of dendrites reaching, retracting, growing, synapses strengthening and weakening. This landscape is never still. It is always in motion, even in sleep, even in silence, even in the quiet moments when you believe nothing important is happening. The term neuroplasticity describes this ability to change, and it is not rare. It is not slow. It is not limited to childhood. Neuroplasticity is continuous. It is woven into every breath, every thought, every emotional shift. With each experience you have, the brain subtly remodels itself, altering the flow of signals that shape your perception of life. You may notice, as you take a slow breath, that something softens inside you, that the shoulders drift downward, that the chest expands with a little more ease. This is not just relaxation, it is biology. As the nervous system detects safety, it begins to rewire. Cortisol levels shift, electrical oscillations settle, synaptic pathways adjust their patterns. Small changes, perhaps, but meaningful. Repetitive calm creates new neural habits. Much of the brain's ability to change lies within the synapse. These microscopic gaps between neurons are where the magic happens. When one neuron activates another repeatedly, the synapse strengthens, creating a smoother path for future signals. When a pathway goes unused, the connection weakens. You are constantly sculpting your neural landscape, strengthening the circuits you rely on, letting others fade into the background. In early childhood, this sculpting happens rapidly. The brain overproduces synapses, creating a dense forest of potential connections. Over time, the brain prunes these connections, keeping the ones most useful and trimming the rest. But pruning does not end in childhood. Even now, your brain prunes. It refines, it simplifies, it optimizes. Some of the most powerful changes occur in response to emotion. Emotional experiences leave deep impressions because they involve not only cognitive networks, but also the body's autonomic system. Fear tightens circuits related to threat. Joy strengthens pathways of openness. Sadness shapes networks of reflection and longing. Every emotional memory is, in essence, a physical shift in the brain's wiring. As you listen to this, allow yourself to notice even the smallest sensations. A coolness in the air, the weight of your body, the slow rise and fall of your breath. These simple acts of noticing activate regions of the brain responsible for awareness, and the more these regions activate, the stronger they become. Awareness itself is a form of neuroplastic training. Deep within your brain, structures like the hippocampus and amygdala help encode the meaning of your experiences. The hippocampus shapes contextual memory, weaving together sensory information into a coherent story. The amygdala tags moments with emotional significance, helping you remember what felt safe and what felt dangerous. These structures are not fixed. They grow, they shrink. They change density, volume, and connectivity depending on how you live. In states of prolonged stress, the amygdala can become more reactive, expanding the influence of fear. The hippocampus may shrink, reducing the clarity of memory and context. But when safety returns, when calm becomes familiar again, these structures can rebuild. The amygdala can quiet. The hippocampus can regrow new neurons, a process known as neurogenesis. Healing is not metaphor. It is anatomy. Your brainstem, the deep and ancient core of your nervous system, regulates survival. Breathing, heart rate, alertness. When you take a slower breath, the brainstem takes note. With repetition, it encodes calmer patterns of autonomic functioning. This is why slow breathing feels different over time. The brain learns calm. It wires it in. The prefrontal cortex, the region behind your forehead, supervises attention, reasoning, emotional regulation, and long-term planning. When you focus gently on the sound of this voice, your prefrontal circuits activate. When you soften your attention and allow the mind to settle, those same circuits help downshift the rest of the nervous system. Over weeks and months, practices of awareness strengthen these pathways, creating a more stable sense of presence and clarity. The brain's networks communicate through rhythmic waves of electrical activity, oscillations that shift with your state of mind. When you feel relaxed, alpha and theta rhythms rise, creating a sense of calm spaciousness. When you are alert and focused, faster beta waves take over. These rhythms are not random. They are shaped by experience. They can be trained. They can be healed. All of these systems, neurons, synapses, emotional circuits, autonomic pathways, electrical rhythms, are constantly adapting to you. They respond to the environments you inhabit, the people you interact with, the habits you maintain, the emotions you feel, and the meaning you assign to your experiences. Your brain is always listening to your life. This is the living brain, a dynamic organ of possibility. As you take another slow breath, feel the truth of that. Notice how the chest rises. Notice how the breath falls. Notice how the mind feels slightly more anchored. That sensation is the nervous system recalibrating moment by moment. Let this awareness settle. Let it rest gently. And when you are ready, allow yourself to drift with me into the next chapter of this journey, where we explore how your experiences, thoughts, and emotions sculpt the wiring of the mind. Healing after stress. Stress leaves a fingerprint on the nervous system. It teaches the brain to anticipate tension, to stay alert, to brace against the world. When stress repeats over time, the body learns to live in survival mode. Muscles tighten, breath grows shallow, thoughts loop in narrow patterns. The mind begins to treat ordinary life as if it were a threat. This is not weakness. This is biology. The brain learns danger quickly because it was built to protect you. The autonomic nervous system governs your stress response. It shifts between two main states. Sympathetic activation, the state of mobilization, prepares the body for fight or flight. Parasympathetic activation, the state of rest and recovery, allows the body to heal, digest, and restore. When stress becomes chronic, the sympathetic system stays dominant. The body forgets how to relax. The mind forgets how to feel safe. But healing is possible because the nervous system is plastic. It can relearn calm. It can remember safety. It can rebuild its patterns of regulation. This process begins with small signals of safety, a slow breath, a moment of quiet, a gentle pause. These may seem minor, but they shift the internal chemistry of the body. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure eases. Muscles release. Electrical patterns in the brain change. Each small moment of ease is a message to the nervous system that the threat has passed. One of the most important mechanisms in healing is the vagus nerve. It connects the brain to the heart, the lungs, and the digestive system. When the vagus nerve senses calm breathing, relaxed posture, or soothing sounds, it signals the brainstem to downshift the stress response. This is why slow breathing feels different after a while. The nervous system is learning from it. Stress often creates loops of anticipation. The brain predicts danger before it arrives. These predictions are built from memory. When something painful or overwhelming happens, the brain remembers not just the event, but the emotional environment surrounding it. The next time something similar appears, the brain activates the same stress pathways. This is why old patterns can feel automatic. The nervous system is trying to keep you safe by predicting what might go wrong. Healing requires new experiences that contradict these predictions. When you encounter moments that feel safe, supportive, or calm, the brain takes notice. If these moments repeat, the nervous system begins to update its expectations. It learns that not every raised voice means danger. Not every silence means abandonment. Not every challenge means failure. Gradually, the stress reflex softens. Recovery from stress is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about teaching the nervous system to return to balance more easily. In a regulated state, the body handles challenges with more clarity. The mind thinks more flexibly. Emotion flows without overwhelming. Resilience is not the absence of stress. It is the ability to return to equilibrium. The body holds stress physically. The jaw tightens. The shoulders lift. The chest constricts. The stomach knots. These are not random sensations. They are physiological memories of past tension. When you bring awareness to these areas, the brain begins to connect sensation with regulation. A gentle scan of the body activates networks in the insula, a region involved in interoception and emotional awareness. Over time, this awareness helps the brain release old tension. Take a slow breath. Feel the ribs expand. Feel the exhale fall away. This simple act communicates with the nervous system in a language older than words. Breath has always been the body's signal for safety. When you breathe slowly, you're telling your brain that the moment is not dangerous. When you repeat this often, the brain begins to believe it. Stress also affects memory. In prolonged stress, the hippocampus becomes less efficient. It struggles to organize experience, making life feel chaotic, but the hippocampus is capable of regrowth. New neurons can form. Connections can strengthen. When stress lessens and calm becomes more frequent, the hippocampus begins to rebuild. Clarity returns. Context returns. A sense of groundedness returns. The prefrontal cortex also suffers under chronic stress. It becomes less able to regulate emotion, less able to think clearly, less able to pause before reacting. But just like a muscle, the prefrontal cortex strengthens with use. Practices of attention, reflection, and deliberate breathing reinforce its circuits. Over time, these circuits regain their balance and authority. Safety is not just a feeling, it is a neural state, a biological condition, a pattern of signaling throughout the body. Healing happens when these signals become strong enough to override the old reflexes. When calm becomes familiar enough to reshape emotional prediction. When the brain learns that it no longer needs to brace against life. You may notice, as you take another slow breath, a subtle warmth in the chest or a weight settling downward through the body. These shifts are your nervous system recalibrating. It is learning. It is adjusting. It is remembering how to return to stillness. Healing after stress is not a single moment. It is a gradual rewiring, a gentle retraining of the nervous system, a process that unfolds through repeated experiences of ease, safety, and presence. Let the breath soften. Let the shoulders loosen if they wish. And when you are ready, continue forward into the next chapter where we explore emotional memory and renewal. Emotional memory and renewal. Emotional memory lives deep within the nervous system. It is not stored as facts or clear images, but as patterns of feeling, patterns of response, patterns of anticipation. These memories guide how you interpret the world, often without conscious awareness. When something reminds you of an old experience, the body reacts before the mind has time to think. A tightening in the stomach, a rush of heat, a sudden urge to withdraw. These reactions are not flaws. They are echoes of earlier moments, encoded in the circuitry of your emotional brain. The amygdala plays a central role in emotional memory. It is constantly scanning for cues that resemble past danger or past comfort. When it detects something familiar, it activates the emotional state associated with that memory. This happens even if you cannot recall the original experience. Emotional memory does not depend on conscious recollection. It depends on learned associations, the sound of a tone, the expression on a face, the rhythm of a voice, a certain silence, a certain tension. The amygdala notices what you learned to fear or seek long before you understood why. The hippocampus weaves these emotional signals into context. It helps you know where you are, what is happening, what the meaning might be. But in moments of overwhelming emotion, the hippocampus may not record clearly. The amygdala becomes loud, while the hippocampus becomes faint. This is why some painful experiences feel blurry, fragmented, or difficult to place in time. The emotional impact was strong, but the contextual memory was weak. Renewal begins when new experiences start to contradict the old emotional expectations. When safety appears in places where you once felt fear. When warmth appears where you once felt distance. When someone listens where you once felt unheard. Slowly, the nervous system updates its emotional predictions. It begins to reshape the associations that once triggered automatic reactions. This process is gradual. Emotional memory does not rewrite instantly. The circuits change through repetition, through new patterns of experience. Through moments where the body learns that the past is not occurring again, even if something feels similar. Each moment of safety in a previously difficult context becomes a small act of neural revision. Over time, these moments accumulate. Neural pathways quiet, emotional reflexes soften. Something inside begins to loosen. Emotional renewal also involves the prefrontal cortex. This region helps reinterpret emotional signals, adding nuance and perspective. When you reflect on what you feel, when you name an emotion, when you pause before reacting, the prefrontal cortex sends signals downward that modulate the amygdala. This does not erase emotion, it guides it. It brings clarity to the intensity. With practice, the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the emotional centers strengthens. You gain more space inside your reactions, more ease, more understanding. Take a slow breath. Notice the movement in the chest. Notice the exhale flowing out. This gentle act strengthens the link between body awareness and emotional regulation. Interoception, the ability to sense internal states, plays a powerful role in emotional memory. When you can feel your internal sensations clearly, emotions become easier to work with. They no longer overwhelm as quickly. The brain learns to interpret them with more accuracy. Emotional patterns also shift through relational experiences. The nervous system learns safety most deeply through connection. When someone is consistently present, supportive, and responsive, your emotional circuits begin to reorganize. Pathways shaped by fear gradually soften as moments of trust repeat. This is why healing often accelerates when you are with people who make you feel understood. The brain rewires fastest in environments where it feels safe to be open. But renewal is not dependent on others. Internal experiences can also create powerful emotional change. When you practice compassion toward yourself, you activate neural systems that soothe and stabilize. When you allow grief to move gently through the body, you release old emotional compression. When you reflect with honesty and patience, circuits of clarity strengthen. The emotional brain learns not just from the world, but from how you treat your own inner experience. Renewal is also supported by meaning. When you understand the story of your emotions, when you see how past experiences shaped your patterns, something shifts. The brain reorganizes around insight. It integrates the pieces. It reduces confusion. This integration changes how emotional memory expresses itself. The same trigger may arise, but the reaction becomes softer, clearer, more grounded. Understanding rewires pathways. As you breathe now, notice if the body feels slightly heavier or more settled. Notice any warmth in the chest or belly. These sensations are gentle signs of regulation. The nervous system is relaxing into the present moment. And each time this happens, emotional circuits adapt. They learn that it is possible to feel and remain safe. To experience inner movement without losing balance. Emotional memory is not destiny. It is a living system, always ready to update, always shaped by what you experience now. Renewal happens through every moment of calm, every moment of awareness, every moment where you meet yourself with patience. The more these moments accumulate, the stronger the new pathways become. Take another slow breath. Let the air enter easily. Let it leave without effort. And when you are ready, move with me into the next chapter, where we explore trauma and the extraordinary ways neuroplasticity can heal what once seemed unchangeable. Trauma and neuroplasticity. Trauma leaves an imprint on the nervous system that is deeper than ordinary stress. It is not just a memory. It is a shift in physiology, in perception, in the rhythms of the autonomic system. Trauma teaches the brain to prepare for danger, even when no danger is present. It narrows attention. It heightens sensitivity. It rewires emotional pathways toward vigilance. This is not a psychological flaw. It is an adaptive response. The brain reorganizes itself to keep you alive. When something overwhelming happens, especially if it happens without support or understanding, the nervous system enters a state where survival takes precedence over everything else. The amygdala becomes hyper-alert, scanning relentlessly for threats. The hippocampus struggles to organize the event into a coherent memory, leaving the experience fragmented or blurry. The prefrontal cortex becomes less active, reducing the ability to regulate emotion or make sense of the moment. The body records the event in tension, breath patterns, and autonomic rhythms. Trauma becomes woven into the fabric of how the body anticipates life. These patterns can persist for years, sometimes decades. A loud sound, a certain posture, a particular tone, even a moment of stillness. Any of these can activate the old defensive circuits. The body reacts instantly. The heart accelerates, the muscles tighten, breath shortens, thoughts narrow. The reaction comes before awareness. Trauma lives in the preconscious layers of the nervous system, beneath language, beneath intention. But trauma is not a permanent state. The brain that formed these patterns can unlearn them. Neuroplasticity allows the nervous system to form new associations, new pathways of safety and calm. This does not erase the past. It transforms the way the past influences the present. Healing begins with small moments of safety. When the body experiences calm in a situation where it once expected danger, the brain begins to update its predictions. These moments might feel subtle at first. A breath that feels softer than usual. A moment when the shoulders drop without effort. A pause where fear does not take over. These micro moments are the seeds of rewiring. Co-regulation plays a powerful role. Being with someone who feels safe, attuned, and steady sends signals through the nervous system that contradict the old patterns. Eye contact, warm tone, gentle presence, and consistent support activate neural pathways of trust. Over time, these pathways strengthen. The body learns the connection can be safe. This changes the emotional reflexes that trauma once shaped. Self-regulation also contributes to healing. When you breathe slowly, when you relax the jaw, when you notice your sensations without judgment, you activate the parasympathetic system. This calms the amygdala, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, and helps the hippocampus integrate fragmented memories. With repetition, these practices form new neural habits. The nervous system becomes more flexible, more balanced, more responsive rather than reactive. Trauma often involves dissociation, a protective mechanism where the mind separates from the body or from the emotional experience. This happens when the event overwhelms the nervous system's capacity to cope. Dissociation is not failure, it is a survival. But healing involves gently reconnecting with the body in safe, gradual ways. Feeling the weight of the body on the ground, sensing the breath, noticing a single point of contact. These small acts rebuild the neural bridges between awareness and sensation. As you take a slow breath now, feel the rise of the chest. Feel the exhale fall away. This is a moment of reconnection. A moment where present experience is safe enough to be felt. Each time you allow yourself to notice the body without fear, you strengthen pathways that counter dissociation. Over time, presence becomes easier. Trauma can also affect the default mode network, a set of brain regions involved in self-reflection. When trauma disrupts this network, the sense of self can feel fragmented or unstable. Healing experiences, such as therapy, mindfulness, meaningful relationships, and creative expression, help reintegrate this network. They restore continuity in the internal narrative. They help the mind understand itself again. Memory. Reconsolidation is another key mechanism. When a traumatic memory is activated in a safe environment and a new emotional experience follows, the brain can rewrite the emotional component of the memory. The facts remain, but the fear response changes. The memory becomes anchored in a new emotional context. This is one of the most powerful examples of neuroplasticity in healing. Every gentle moment of safety teaches the nervous system something new. Every breath that softens the body contradicts the expectation of danger. Every grounded moment builds a pathway that leads out of hypervigilance. Healing does not happen all at once. It happens happens through thousands of small encounters with safety that accumulate until the body no longer organizes itself around fear. Trauma shapes identity, but neuroplasticity allows identity to evolve. You are not trapped in the reflexes of the past. Your brain can learn new ways of being, new ways of feeling, new ways of responding. Renewal is not only possible, it is the natural direction of a nervous system that finally feels supported, understood, and safe enough to grow. Take one more slow, gentle breath. Feel the air move through you without effort. And when you are ready, continue with me into the next chapter, where we explore the intimate connection between the mind and the body, and how interoception and somatic awareness contribute to healing. The mind-body link. The mind and body are not separate worlds. They are different expressions of the same system, constantly communicating through sensation, chemistry, and electrical rhythms. Every emotion has a physical signature. Every thought carries a bodily echo. The nervous system bridges the two, sending signals upward from the body to shape perception and downward from the brain to shape sensation. Healing emerges when this communication becomes clear, steady, and balanced. Interoception is the ability to sense the internal state of your body, the beating of the heart, the expansion of the lungs, the warmth in the chest, the tension in the muscles. These sensations provide the brain with vital information about safety and need. When interoception is strong, emotions feel understandable and manageable. When it is weak, emotional experiences can feel overwhelming or confusing. Stress narrows interoception. The body tightens and numbs itself to cope. Breath becomes shallow. Awareness fades. The mind disconnects from physical sensation in order to endure. This disconnect may have been necessary once, but over time it creates confusion inside the emotional world. Healing involves returning to the body gently, allowing sensation to be felt without overwhelm. A slow breath is often the first bridge. When you inhale with ease and exhale without force, the vagus nerve carries the signal of calm downward. The heart rate begins to settle. The digestive system softens. The muscles release. This creates a feedback loop. The body sends signals of safety back to the brain, and the brain adjusts its emotional state accordingly. Breath is not symbolic. It is physiological. It is the most direct way to influence the nervous system. Take a gentle breath now. Notice the subtle movement in your chest or belly. Notice the coolness of the air entering and the warmth of the air leaving. These sensations awaken networks in the insula, the region responsible for integrating bodily signals with emotional understanding. Over time, this strengthens the connection between sensation and awareness, making it easier to navigate emotion without being swept away. Somatic healing involves paying attention to bodily patterns shaped by past experience. Trauma or chronic stress often leaves behind protective tension, tightness in the jaw, elevated shoulders, a contracted stomach. These patterns formed as survival strategies. They helped you endure moments when the body did not feel safe. But when life changes, when safety becomes more available, these old patterns can remain frozen in place, holding the body in a state of vigilance. Bringing gentle awareness to these patterns begins to soften them, not through force, but through presence. Noticing the weight of your body, feeling your feet on the ground, sensing the spine lengthening slightly with each breath. These small acts teach the nervous system that it no longer needs to brace. With repetition, the body learns new postures, new rhythms, new habits of ease. Somatic memory is powerful because the body often remembers what the mind has forgotten. An old feeling might arise before a thought appears. A sudden tightness may surface without explanation. These moments are the body speaking in its original language. Listening without judgment allows the brain to interpret these signals more accurately. Over time, this reduces the intensity of emotional reflexes. The body becomes less reactive, more responsive, more grounded. Movement also plays a role in the mind-body relationship. Slow, intentional movement, walking, stretching, yoga, gentle swaying, helps release stored tension and recalibrate the nervous system. When the body moves freely, the brain updates its map of safety and spatial awareness. Movement creates new sensory experiences that reshape emotional pathways. Touch can also communicate safety. A hand on the chest, a gentle hold on the arm, a warm blanket. These sensations activate ancient pathways of comfort. The brain interprets them as signals of support. Over time, touch teaches the body that it is allowed to relax. This is why self-soothing gestures, such as placing a hand over the heart or resting a palm on the abdomen, can feel grounding. Awareness of posture influences mental state as well. When the spine is tall and open, the brain receives signals of confidence and alertness. When the body collapses inward, the brain interprets it as withdrawal or defeat. Adjusting posture gently, not excessively, not rigidly, creates shifts in emotional tone. The nervous system listens to how you hold yourself. The mind-body connection becomes even more powerful when attention is steady. When you notice your breath, your heartbeat, your temperature, your weight, you activate the neural pathways that integrate bodily sensation with cognition. This strengthens regulation. It builds clarity. It cultivates inner stability. Healing through the mind-body link is not dramatic. It is subtle. It is quiet. It unfolds through thousands of small moments where the body feels safe enough to soften and the mind feels spacious enough to notice. These moments accumulate, forming new pathways of calm. Take one more slow breath. Let it enter naturally. Let it leave without effort. Feel the gentle presence of your body, the quiet intelligence within it, the ongoing conversation between sensation and awareness. When you are ready, continue into the next chapter, where we explore how attention and awareness reshape the brain structure and create pathways of presence. Attention and awareness. Attention is one of the most powerful forces that shapes the brain. Wherever you direct it, neural activity increases. When neural activity increases consistently, the brain strengthens those circuits. This is how attention becomes a sculptor of the mind. It determines which pathways grow, which fade, and which become the foundation of your inner world. Awareness is different from attention. Attention selects. Awareness observes. Attention narrows. Awareness opens. Both influence the brain in profound ways. Attention builds skill and precision. Awareness builds clarity and presence. Together, they regulate emotion, deepen understanding, and create space between stimulus and response. In a distracted mind, attention jumps rapidly from one thing to another. This constant shifting trains the brain to be restless, reducing its ability to stay steady. But when you gently guide attention toward one thing, a breath, a sound, a sensation, a thought, the brain learns to stabilize. Circuits in the prefrontal cortex strengthen. The default mode network becomes quieter. Emotional reactivity diminishes. Over weeks and months, this transforms how you think and how you feel. Awareness works more like a soft light. It does not try to control experience. It notices. It receives. It allows sensations, emotions, and thoughts to arise without immediately reacting. When awareness is strong, the brain becomes less fused with its own activity. Emotions feel more fluid. Thoughts feel less rigid. Difficult moments feel easier to navigate because there is space around them. Take a slow breath. Notice how the air moves in. Notice how it leaves. This simple act strengthens the pathways of interoceptive awareness. The more clearly you sense your internal world, the easier it becomes to regulate your emotional world. Awareness anchors the mind in the present moment, reducing the power of old predictions and anxieties. The prefrontal cortex plays a key role in attention. It chooses what matters. It suppresses distractions. It organizes thoughts. When you practice holding attention gently, you strengthen the prefrontal networks that help regulate emotion. This is why steady attention often leads to a calmer mind. It is not magic. It is neural training. Mindfulness practices enhance these networks. When you sit with your breath, your sensations, or your thoughts without trying to change them, you activate regions of the brain that observe experience without being overwhelmed by it. Over time, the amygdala becomes less reactive. The hippocampus becomes more stable. Emotional regulation improves significantly. Awareness also influences the default mode network, the system involved in self-reflection and internal narrative. When this network becomes overly active, the mind loops in worry, self-criticism, and rumination. But when awareness grows, the default mode network quiets. Thoughts become clearer. The narrative inside the mind becomes softer, more spacious, more grounded in reality. Attention affects perception. When you focus on stress, the world feels stressful. When you focus on safety, the nervous system learns calm. When you direct attention towards small moments of ease, a warm light, a gentle breeze, a comfortable position, you train the brain to notice what is nurturing rather than what is threatening. Over time, the balance shifts. The mind becomes more attuned to calm, more open to possibility. Awareness affects identity. When you observe your thoughts rather than identifying with them, you experience a subtle shift. Thoughts become events in the mind rather than definitions of the self. Emotions become waves that rise and fall rather than truths that define who you are. This separation allows healing. The brain learns to update its sense of self through clarity rather than fear. Take another gentle breath. Feel the rise and fall. This is attention. Notice how the breath feels without changing it. This is awareness. These two skills shape the brain in complementary ways. One strengthens circuits of control and stability. The other strengthens circuits of presence and acceptance. As attention and awareness grow, emotional resilience increases. The mind becomes more flexible. The nervous system becomes more balanced. You begin to respond rather than react. You begin to sense rather than fear. You begin to live from presence rather than from automatic patterns. Attention and awareness are not dramatic practices. They are simple. They are subtle. They reshape the brain quietly, gradually, and powerfully. Each moment of noticing becomes a moment of neural change. When you are ready, move with me into the next chapter, where we explore how learning and reinforcement create lasting identity-level changes in the architecture of the mind. Learning and reinforcement. Learning is the process by which the brain strengthens certain pathways and weakens others. Reinforcement is what makes those pathways last. Together, they form the architecture of change. Every skill you possess, every habit you repeat, every emotional pattern that feels familiar exists because of learning and reinforcement. These forces shape identity itself. In the brain, learning begins with prediction and outcome. When you expect something to happen, and it does, the brain reinforces the pathways that made that prediction. When you expect something and the result is different, the brain updates its model. This constant cycle, predict, compare, learn, is how the nervous system adapts to the world. It is happening right now as you listen, as you breathe, as you settle into the flow of this narration. Reinforcement is driven largely by dopamine, a neurotransmitter involved in motivation, curiosity, and reward. Dopamine does not create pleasure. It creates the feeling of wanting to move towards something. It tells the brain, this matters. Pay attention. Repeat this. When dopamine rises, the brain strengthens the pathways associated with the action or experience that triggered it. This is how habits form so quickly and why they can be difficult to change. Dopamine makes them sticky. But dopamine is not limited to unhealthy patterns. It also reinforces learning, growth, healing, and emotional resilience. When you feel a moment of clarity, when a breath brings ease, when a new behavior feels empowering, dopamine helps anchor that experience. With repetition, the brain learns to seek out these experiences. Calm becomes rewarding. Clarity becomes rewarding. Self-trust becomes rewarding. Take a long, slow breath. Allow the exhale to soften. In this moment, your nervous system is engaging with the experience of ease. If repeated often, moments like this become encoded as familiar. The body begins to favor them. The brain learns that calm is safe and attainable. Learning also shapes identity through self-perception. When you repeatedly tell yourself you can handle stress, those words become neural pathways. When you repeatedly believe you are overwhelmed, the brain reinforces that identity. The stories you tell yourself are electrical patterns repeated until they feel like truth. Changing the story changes the circuit. Reinforcement happens through repetition, not intensity, not force. Repetition. A behavior repeated becomes a habit. A thought repeated becomes a belief. An emotional pattern repeated becomes a reflex. This is why gentle, consistent practices create more change than dramatic efforts. The brain listens to what you do most often, not what you do most passionately for a moment. This is also why small actions matter. Taking a slow breath once means little. Taking a slow breath 10 times a day teaches the nervous system a new baseline. Saying something kind to yourself once may feel insignificant. Saying it every day rewires self-perception. Choosing a small moment of stillness each evening builds the pathway of rest. These subtle repetitions accumulate until they reshape the architecture of your inner world. The brain also relies on cues. A cue triggers a behavior, and a behavior triggers a reward. Changing the cue often leads to new behavior. Changing the reward can strengthen healthier behaviors. When you pair something nurturing with something challenging, the brain learns that the challenge is survivable. A soft breath before a difficult task, a moment of grounding before a stressful conversation. These cues teach the brain that stress does not need to dominate the body. Over time, reinforcement creates emotional learning. When safe experiences repeat, the brain rewires its predictions. It stops assuming danger. It stops bracing. It begins to believe that it can handle the world. Emotional learning is slower than cognitive learning because it involves deeper circuits, but it is far more transformative. It changes not just what you know, but how you feel inside your life. Motivation also plays a role. The brain is motivated by meaning. When an experience feels purposeful, the nervous system engages more fully. When the mind understands why a change matters, dopamine increases. This helps reinforce new behaviors and emotional responses. This is why healing accelerates when you connect your efforts to something personal and meaningful. Peace, freedom, clarity, love, stability, hope. Identity is one of the most profound products of learning and reinforcement. You become the patterns you repeat. Not permanently, not irreversibly, but tangibly. The self is a constellation of reinforced neural pathways. When you repeat new patterns, moments of courage, moments of calm, moments of awareness, the constellation shifts. Identity evolves. The brain is never finished learning who you are. Take another slow breath. Feel the gentle rise. Feel the soft release. This is how reinforcement begins. One calm moment at a time. One gentle choice at a time. One signal to the nervous system that safety is possible. When you are ready, move forward into the next chapter, where we explore how environment, relationships, and surroundings shape the rewiring process in powerful and often unexpected ways. The role of environment. Environment shapes the nervous system as profoundly as experience itself. The spaces you live in, the relationships you inhabit, the rhythms that surround you. All of these send continuous signals to the brain. Signals of safety, signals of threat, signals of possibility, signals of restriction. The brain absorbs these cues quietly, consistently, and deeply. Over time, they sculpt emotional patterns, habits, and the way you interpret the world. From the first days of life, the environment teaches the nervous system how to feel. A calm home teaches calm. A chaotic home teaches vigilance. A warm presence teaches trust. A cold presence teaches withdrawal. Even the soundscape, the tone of voices, the softness of silence, the unpredictability of noise, shapes neural circuits that govern emotional reactions. Environment is not background. It is biology. As adults, we often underestimate how much our surroundings influence us. Light affects mood. Air quality affects thinking. Clutter increases cognitive load. Nature reduces stress hormones. The colors around you shift emotional tone. The presence of supportive people activates neural pathways of safety. The presence of unpredictable or harsh people activates networks of tension. The brain is in constant conversation with the external world, collecting information and adjusting internal states accordingly. Take a slow breath. Notice the space you are in, the temperature, the sounds, the weight of the air. You are not separate from this environment. Your nervous system is responding to it right now, whether subtly or strongly. Safe environments encourage neuroplasticity. When the brain senses safety, it becomes more open to change. It is more willing to release old patterns and form new ones. This is why healing accelerates in supportive surroundings, in safe relationships, in calm spaces. The nervous system needs cues of safety to explore new wiring. Environments of chronic threat do the opposite. They suppress plasticity. They push the brain into survival mode. They cause the amygdala to become hyperactive, the prefrontal cortex to become less engaged, and the emotional memory system to remain on alert. In these conditions, learning becomes difficult. Growth becomes slow. The nervous system focuses on survival rather than exploration. But change is still possible. Even within difficult environments, small moments of safety can become anchors. A calm corner of a room, a ritual of quiet in the morning, a warm light in the evening, a moment of breath before sleep. These microenvironments signal the nervous system to soften. With repetition, they become islands of regulation that slowly expand. Relationships are one of the most powerful environmental forces. Co-regulation, the process of two nervous systems influencing each other, shapes emotional patterns more strongly than almost any internal practice. When someone is calm near you, your physiology shifts. When someone is tense, your body mirrors it. When someone listens with presence, your nervous system relaxes. When someone judges harshly, tension rises. The nervous system is always attuning to others. Healthy relationships strengthen pathways of trust, safety, and emotional flexibility. Harmful relationships reinforce pathways of fear, vigilance, and withdrawal. Sometimes healing begins not with changing yourself, but with changing the environment around you. Creating distance from someone who constantly activates threat circuits. Moving towards someone who brings steadiness. Allowing supportive people into your life. These changes alter the signals your nervous system receives and reshape your internal patterns. Even strangers influence your nervous system. A kind smile releases oxytocin. A tense expression triggers micro-alertness. The nervous system reads these signals instantly, adjusting its state. Over time, repeated interactions build emotional expectations, assumptions about how the world will respond to you. These assumptions shape behavior, and behavior shapes identity. Nature is a profound healer. Natural environments, even briefly experienced, reduce cortisol, lower heart rate, and activate networks of calm. The sound of wind, the sight of trees, the presence of water. These ancient cues tell the nervous system that survival is not threatened. They activate pathways of restoration. Even images of nature or indoor plants can create subtle shifts in physiology. The built environment also matters. Bright lights can agitate the nervous system. Soft lighting soothes it. Harsh noise activates alertness. Gentle sound calms it. Order and spaciousness support mental clarity. Clutter increases cognitive load and stress. You do not need a perfect environment. You only need one that signals safety more often than threat. Take another slow breath. Notice the sensation of being where you are. This moment is part of your environment, and your nervous system is responding. If you feel even a small sense of ease, that ease is a message, a cue, a signal of safety that contributes to neuroplastic change. Environment is not something outside you. It is part of the loop that shapes who you become. When you create small pockets of safety around you, you create pathways of safety within you. When you seek connection that supports you, you strengthen the networks that regulate emotion. When you spend time in spaces that nourish you, your brain learns calm more naturally. When you are ready, move forward into the next chapter, where we explore how neuroplasticity is woven into cultures and healing traditions across the world, revealing universal patterns of renewal found throughout human history. Neuroplasticity across cultures. Across history, across continents, across languages and traditions, humans discovered the principles of neuroplasticity long before the word existed. They noticed that the mind changes. They observed that experience reshapes emotion. They understood that repeated practices alter perception and identity. Every culture developed methods for healing, calming, strengthening, and renewing the human inner world. These methods differ in form, but they share the same biological foundation. The brain learns, the brain adapts, the brain rewires. Ancient cultures did not describe neurons or synapses, but they recognized that focused attention transforms the mind. They observed that breath influences emotion. They saw that repeated rituals stabilize the nervous system. They knew that supportive relationships change the way a person carries themselves. These insights, born from observation rather than laboratory research, align deeply with modern neuroscience. In Eastern traditions, practices like meditation, breathwork, and mindful movement were developed to bring the mind and body into harmony. These practices strengthen the same brain networks involved in attention, interoception, and emotional regulation. When people meditated thousands of years ago, they were engaging in neuroplastic training. They were shaping the brain's capacity to perceive, to calm, to understand, to stay present. Breath-centered practices from India, China, and Japan focused on long exhalations and controlled inhalations. Modern neuroscience reveals that these techniques activate the vagus nerve, shifting the body into parasympathetic regulation. The ancients did not know the term vagus nerve, but they knew the feeling of calm, the clarity of mind, and the emotional balance it created. Indigenous cultures around the world developed rituals involving rhythm, drumming, chanting, dancing. These rhythmic practices synchronize neural oscillations in the brain, creating states of unity, grounding, and emotional release. Rhythm regulates the nervous system. It organizes the body. It creates predictable patterns that soothe fear and enhance connection. What ancient cultures experienced as spiritual alignment is deeply connected to what neuroscience describes as regulated neural coherence. Many healing traditions emphasized the power of storytelling. Narratives helped people make sense of their experiences, integrate difficult emotions, and reshape identity. The brain relies on narrative to organize memory and meaning. When a story helps reframe an experience, it alters the neural pathways associated with that memory. This is why storytelling is found in every culture. It is not just art. It is a tool for rewiring the brain. Communal belonging has also been central to cultural healing. In many societies, emotional challenges were not faced alone. They were carried collectively. Supportive social networks regulate the nervous system. They reduce cortisol. They increase oxytocin. They create safety that accelerates neuroplasticity. Cultures that emphasize community and connection unknowingly tap into one of the most powerful mechanisms of emotional healing. Rituals of gratitude, prayer, or reflection appear in nearly every culture. These practices activate networks in the prefrontal cortex associated with meaning, hope, and emotional stability. They reduce activity in threat detection circuits and increase pathways associated with well-being. Gratitude practices, in particular, shift attention toward positive cues, which encourages the brain to reinforce networks of appreciation and safety. Even cultural symbols and sacred objects have a neurobiological effect. When something represents safety, meaning, or belonging, the brain responds with calm. When something represents hope, the brain releases dopamine. When something represents connection, the brain engages social circuits. These responses reinforce emotional patterns and give shape to inner experience. Some cultures developed contemplative walking practices, pilgrimages, labyrinths, slow intentional journeys. Movement, combined with reflection, regulates both brain and body. It creates a steady rhythm that balances the autonomic system, allowing emotional processing to unfold more easily. Modern neuroscience shows that bilateral movement, such as walking, engages networks involved in memory integration and emotional healing. In many African, Middle Eastern, and indigenous traditions, healing involved the entire community. Songs, rituals, shared meals, collective silence. These experiences regulate individual nervous systems by synchronizing them with the group. Modern research on co-regulation and social neuroscience confirms what ancient cultures practiced intuitively. Healing happens fastest when you are not alone. Across cultures, healing also involved nature, sacred forests, mountain retreats, ocean rituals. Natural environments reduce stress markers in the brain. They activate networks associated with wonder, openness, and calm. Humans evolved in nature. The nervous system still recognizes it as home. Though cultures express healing differently, their discoveries converge on the same biological truths. The brain rewires through repetition. Breath calms the autonomic system. Rhythm organizes emotion. Storytelling reframes memory. Community regulates the nervous system. Nature restores balance. Insight changes perception. Ritual stabilizes the mind. Take a slow breath. Feel the air enter. Feel it leave. You are participating in practices shared across millennia. Your nervous system responds the way human nervous systems always have. Cultures across time were not merely expressing beliefs, they were training the brain. When you are ready, continue with me into the next chapter, where we explore how creativity reshapes inner architecture and opens pathways toward a renewed sense of self. Creativity and rebuilding the self. Creativity is one of the most powerful forces for reshaping the brain. When you create, whether through words, images, movement, music, problem-solving, or imagination, you activate neural networks that lie beyond routine patterns. Creativity interrupts old circuits and encourages the formation of new ones. It expands possibility. It introduces novelty. It invites the brain to explore instead of repeat. The creative mind engages multiple brain regions at once. The prefrontal cortex imagines. The parietal lobes visualize. The temporal lobes evoke memory and emotion. The limbic system colors the experience with feeling. The default mode network weaves ideas into a narrative. Creativity pulls from the entire brain like a symphony, drawing from every instrument. This integration makes it a profound engine of neuroplasticity. When you imagine something new, you are already changing the brain. Visualization activates many of the same neural circuits involved in real experience. Athletes use it to strengthen motor pathways. Artists use it to explore ideas before they exist. People healing from trauma use it to rehearse safety, connection, or courage. Imagination is not escapism. It is neural rehearsal. Creativity also introduces novelty, and novelty accelerates learning. When something feels new, dopamine increases, curiosity awakens, and the brain becomes more flexible. This flexibility makes it easier to shift emotional patterns, challenge old assumptions, and build new habits of thought. A small creative act, a sketch, a melody, a sentence, a gesture, can open a channel inside the mind that leads to unexpected transformation. Take a slow breath. Notice the gentle movement within you. Creativity begins in moments like this, where presence creates space for something new to arise. Emotional expression is a key part of creative healing. When you write about your experience, paint it, move with it, or speak it aloud, you engage the brain's integrative networks. You allow emotion to flow rather than stay trapped in silent tension. The act of expressing gives the nervous system a pathway to release. It transforms emotional energy into structure and meaning. This is why art therapy, journaling, music, and storytelling have such profound effects. They do not erase the past. They reorganize it. They turn raw emotion into form. They turn confusion into coherence. They allow the brain to reframe experience in a way that feels safe and meaningful. Creativity also strengthens agency. When you make something, even something small, you experience a moment of control, influence, and personal authorship. This shifts neural activity in regions involved in motivation and identity. Over time, this reinforces the belief that change is possible, that you can shape your inner world, that you are not at the mercy of circumstance or memory. Movement-based creativity. Dance, stretching, gesture, exploration of space connects the body and mind. It allows the nervous system to experience expression through physical form. Movement rewires the sensory maps in the brain, reorganizes tension patterns, and creates new pathways for emotional regulation. Even gentle movements can communicate safety to the body, allowing stored energy to release. Playfulness is another form of creativity that heals. When you engage in something for the sake of joy rather than productivity, the brain shifts into a different mode. Stress pathways quiet, curiosity increases, emotional flexibility grows. Play signals to the nervous system that the moment is safe enough for exploration, and exploration is the foundation of neuroplasticity. Imagination can also rebuild identity. When you imagine yourself differently, calmer, stronger, clearer, more connected, you activate networks that shape self-perception. Over time, these imagined selves influence real behavior. The brain does not distinguish sharply between imagined experience and lived experience. What you repeatedly envision becomes easier to embody. Creativity allows the mind to see beyond its old patterns. It opens doors that trauma, stress, or habituation once closed. It creates a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. It is not decorative, it is transformative. It rebuilds neural architecture from the inside out. Take another slow breath. Let it move through you with ease. This breath, too, is an opening, a clearing, a moment where something new could arise. Creativity thrives in moments of presence, when the mind feels spacious enough to welcome unfamiliar possibilities. When you are ready, continue forward with me into the next chapter, where we explore the future of healing, psychedelics, targeted neuroplasticity, modern therapies, and the unfolding frontier of neuroscience. The future of healing. The future of healing is unfolding at the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, technology, and ancient wisdom. For the first time in human history, we can see the brain change in real time. We can observe how networks reorganize during therapy, how new pathways emerge during learning, how emotional circuits soften during healing. This visibility has opened doors to methods that accelerate neuroplasticity in ways once thought impossible. Psychedelic-assisted therapy is one of the most significant breakthroughs. Substances like psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine have shown the ability to temporarily quiet rigid neural patterns, allowing the brain to enter a highly plastic open state. In this state, long-held emotional reflexes soften. Traumatic memories become accessible without overwhelming. New associations form rapidly. Psychedelics reduce activity in the default mode network, the system involved in self-narrative and rumination. When this network quiets, the sense of self becomes more fluid. Old stories lose their grip. Compassion increases. Emotional insights emerge with clarity. Combined with skilled therapeutic guidance, these experiences can lead to lasting change, reshaping the neural architecture of identity and emotion. MDMA-assisted therapy has shown remarkable results for post-traumatic stress. MDMA increases serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine, creating a state of emotional safety and trust. In this state, traumatic memories can be revisited without triggering full threat responses. The amygdala becomes less reactive, the prefrontal cortex becomes more engaged, and the nervous system learns to reinterpret the memory in a new, gentler context. This is memory reconsolidation at its most powerful. Ketamine works differently. It disrupts entrenched neural pathways and promotes the growth of new synaptic connections. This rapid burst of neuroplasticity can lift depressive patterns, allowing emotional flexibility to return. The mind becomes less trapped in repetitive loops. The body feels lighter. New possibilities open. These treatments do not replace traditional healing. They enhance it. They create windows where therapy can work more effectively, where the nervous system is more receptive to change, where emotional insight flows more freely. Technology is also reshaping the future of healing. Neurofeedback allows people to see their brainwaves in real time and learn how to shift them. Over time, this trains the nervous system to access states of calm, focus, and emotional regulation more easily. The brain learns through direct feedback, reinforcing patterns that support well-being. Transcranial magnetic stimulation uses magnetic fields to stimulate specific brain regions. It can lift depressive circuits, quiet anxious ones, and restore balance in networks disrupted by stress or trauma. Deep brain stimulation, once used primarily for movement disorders, is being explored for conditions like severe depression and obsessive-compulsive patterns. Wearable devices now monitor heart rate variability, breath rhythms, and stress responses, helping people identify patterns they could not see before. By noticing these patterns, they can intervene earlier, breathe more effectively, rest before exhaustion, and create healthier rhythms of regulation. These tools give the nervous system what it needs most: awareness paired with supportive action. Sleep science is transforming healing as well. We now understand that sleep is one of the most powerful drivers of neuroplasticity. During deep sleep, the brain clears stress metabolites, integrates emotional memories, and stabilizes new learning. When sleep improves, healing accelerates. When sleep is disrupted, emotional circuits remain raw and reactive. Technologies that enhance deep sleep indirectly enhance emotional renewal. Diet and the gut-brain connection are also entering a new era. The gut microbiome influences mood, inflammation, and even the production of neurotransmitters. Foods rich in fiber, polyphenols, omega-3s, and fermented cultures support a healthier microbiome, which in turn supports emotional stability. What seems like nutrition is actually neurochemistry. Future therapies may involve personalized neuroplasticity. Brain imaging could identify which circuits require strengthening, which require quieting, which emotional patterns need support. Interventions could then be tailored with extreme precision, accelerating healing far beyond current methods. Virtual reality is emerging as a powerful tool for rewiring fear and trauma. By creating controlled simulations, people can gently approach difficult triggers in safe contexts, allowing gradual desensitization and new learning. VR can also induce states of awe, calm, and perspective, states known to promote neural flexibility. Artificial intelligence will likely play a role in individualized emotional support, identifying subtle patterns in mood and behavior, offering guidance at the right moment, predicting emotional cycles, and coordinating personalized healing plans. This assistance will not replace human connection. It will enhance it, providing stability and insight between human interactions. Yet for all these innovations, some of the most powerful future tools come from timeless practices. Meditation will remain one of the strongest ways to reshape attention networks. Breathwork will continue to transform the autonomic system. Movement will keep recalibrating the body. Nature will always restore the nervous system, and compassion towards self and others will remain the most fundamental catalyst for emotional change. The future of healing is not about replacing what we know. It is about integrating the best of science with the deepest truths of human experience. It is about understanding the nervous system, not as a machine, but as a living, responsive, adaptive system shaped by everything you encounter. Take a slow breath. Feel the air move gently in and out. The future is built in moments like this, moments where the nervous system feels safe, open, and ready to grow. When you are ready, continue forward into the final chapter, where we integrate everything into a cohesive vision of renewal and the emergence of a renewed self. A renewed self. Healing does not create a different person. It reveals the person who has been waiting beneath layers of conditioning, tension, fear, and old emotional memory. A renewed self is not an invention. It is an emergence, a gradual unfolding of inner patterns that were always possible but could not fully express themselves until the nervous system learned to feel safe again. Renewal begins quietly, not with dramatic moments, but with small shifts, a breath that softens the chest, a reaction that comes with more space, a thought that feels kinder, a night where sleep comes more easily, a morning where the body feels less heavy. These subtle changes signal that the nervous system is reorganizing, that new pathways are forming, that old patterns are loosening their grip. The brain does not heal through force. It heals through safety, repetition, and experience. When you create moments of calm, the nervous system learns calm. When you treat yourself with gentleness, the mind learns gentleness. When you remain present through difficult emotion, the brain learns resilience. When you allow connection, the emotional circuits learn trust. These lessons accumulate slowly but powerfully. A renewed self emerges through integration. Integration means that the mind no longer fights against itself. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, and memories begin to communicate instead of collide. The prefrontal cortex guides the emotional centers rather than being overwhelmed by them. The body signals the mind with clarity instead of confusion. The hippocampus organizes memories with coherence. The amygdala responds with discernment rather than reflex. The self becomes less fragmented, less divided between past and present, less caught between fear and hope, more whole. Take a slow breath. Notice how the air fills the body. Notice how the exhale brings release. This simple moment is part of integration. It anchors awareness in the present, linking the mind and body in a single rhythm. Renewal also involves choice. The power to choose thoughts that guide rather than punish. To choose behaviors that nourish rather than drain. to choose environments that support healing rather than recreate harm. Neuroplasticity does not only respond to experience, it responds to intention. Your choices become part of your wiring. Identity changes as the brain rewires, not suddenly, not completely, but gradually, like the slow turning of a season. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone defined by wounds, but as someone shaped by growth. Not as someone limited by fear, but as someone learning safety. Not as someone trapped in patterns, but as someone capable of forming new ones. You begin to trust your own capacity to shift. You begin to recognize that feelings are visitors, not permanent states. You begin to sense that thoughts are events, not truths. You begin to understand your nervous system as something responsive, adaptable, and alive. Over time, a renewed self feels quieter, more grounded, more spacious, less pulled into old reflexes, more aware of choice, more capable of presence, more at home within. Healing does not erase difficulty. It changes your relationship to it. Stress arises, but it no longer overwhelms. Fear surfaces, but it no longer defines. Old memories appear, but they no longer dictate your future. The nervous system learns flexibility. The mind learns compassion. The self learns stability. In this state of renewal, you begin to live differently. You speak with more awareness. You listen with more openness. You move with more ease. You rest with more trust. You respond rather than react. You create rather than protect. You allow rather than resist. Life feels less like something you must survive and more like something you can inhabit fully. Take another slow breath. Feel it enter gently. Feel it leave softly. This breath is not just air moving through lungs. It is a signal to the nervous system that growth is possible, that healing is underway, that renewal is real. A renewed self is not a destination. It is a process, a living, ongoing relationship with your own inner world. The brain continues to learn. The heart continues to open. The body continues to unwind. Healing continues in quiet moments, in daily choices, in how you meet yourself again and again. You are not fixed. You are not finished. You are not shaped permanently by the past. You are a living system, capable of transformation at every stage of life. Neuroplasticity is not just a scientific fact, it is a reminder of your own potential. Let the breath settle. Let the moment rest. Let your mind absorb the truth that renewal is not something you hope for. It is something already happening within you, moment by moment, breath by breath, experience by experience. This is the renewed self, soft, steady, open, alive, and always becoming. A renewed self. Renewal deepens as the nervous system integrates its new patterns into everyday life. What begins as subtle shifts gradually becomes a different way of being. The body no longer lives in anticipation of threat. The mind no longer organizes itself around old narratives. The emotional landscape no longer feels dominated by patterns rooted in history. Instead, the present moment becomes more accessible, more breathable, more inhabitable. A renewed self feels time differently. The past softens. The future becomes less heavy. The present grows wider. You begin to notice things that were once invisible. A softness in your posture, a small ease between thoughts, a feeling of steadiness that arrives unexpectedly. These moments are not random. They are the result of new neural rhythms becoming familiar. The nervous system learns predictability through repetition. As calm becomes more frequent, the body recalibrates its baseline. Muscles that once held tension out of habit begin to release without being asked. Breath patterns that once tightened during small triggers now remain open. The heart, which once quickened at any hint of stress, begins to respond with discernment. These are signs of a nervous system rediscovering balance. Take a gentle breath. Notice the subtle warmth in the chest or the quiet at the edges of your awareness. These sensations are markers of regulation. They signal that the body trusts the moment enough to soften. In renewal, self-talk changes. The inner voice becomes less sharp, less urgent, less punishing. A quieter tone emerges, one that guides rather than criticizes, one that observes rather than attacks. This shift is not merely psychological, it is neural. Circuits involved in self-reflection reorganize when compassion becomes more consistent than self-judgment. Over time, the mind begins speaking to itself with the same respect it offers others. Emotional resilience also grows naturally. It is not the absence of strong emotion. It is the ability to feel without losing the center. It is the capacity to let emotion move through the body without becoming trapped or overwhelmed. The renewed self does not avoid emotion. It allows emotion, trusting that the body can hold it and release it. This trust develops as the nervous system becomes more flexible, more practiced in returning to equilibrium. Identity expands. You begin to see yourself as more capable, more fluid, more adaptable. Experiences that once felt defining now feel informative instead. Old wounds no longer function as anchors. They become part of a wider story, one where pain shaped you, but healing transformed you. Neuroplasticity allows these shifts in identity to take root, forming new self-perceptions grounded in strength rather than fear. Relationships change as well. When the nervous system becomes regulated, connection becomes easier. Vulnerability feels less threatening. Boundaries feel more natural. Presence feels more accessible. You begin to recognize who nourishes your nervous system and who disrupts it. This clarity is not judgment, it is attunement. And attunement guides you toward healthier environments and more supportive connections. The renewed self carries a sense of inner spaciousness. You feel more room inside your thoughts, more patience inside your reactions, more steadiness inside your body. You become less defined by urgency, less driven by fear, less dominated by reflex. This spaciousness allows you to make choices from clarity instead of habit, from awareness instead of survival. Renewal also brings a return of curiosity. When the mind is no longer consumed by vigilance or emotional overwhelm, curiosity reawakens. You notice beauty again. You feel interest again. You sense possibility again. Curiosity is the mind's way of leaning toward life rather than away from it. It is one of the clearest signs of healing. Take another slow breath. Let it enter gently. Let it leave freely. Feel the body respond. This is not just breath. It is participation in your own growth. Over time, renewal evolves into something deeper than healing. It becomes transformation. Not a transformation into someone new, but a transformation into someone more whole. Someone whose patterns reflect presence rather than protection. Someone whose inner world is governed by stability rather than chaos. Someone whose mind knows it can change, adapt, and grow. A renewed self does not mean life becomes easy. Challenges remain. Emotions still arise. But the relationship to difficulty changes. Instead of collapsing under it, you meet it with strength. Instead of fearing it, you navigate it with awareness. Instead of losing yourself in it, you remain grounded. Renewal is not an arrival. It is an ongoing process. a continuous unfolding, a living dialogue between who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. The nervous system shifts again and again, shaped by your choices, your environment, your relationships, and your moments of awareness. Healing is not a miracle. It is biology. Renewal is not an idea. It is a natural capacity within you. Every breath you take, every moment of awareness you cultivate, every gesture of compassion you offer yourself strengthens the pathways that lead toward wholeness. Let your breath soften. Let the moments settle. Let the renewed self continue to unfold within you, quietly, steadily, naturally, just as it has been doing throughout this entire journey.